Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and gaming companies are at war with actually preserving the medium that we know and love. Now, as you all know on my channel, I like to talk about emulators and ROMs and game preservation. These are important things for me. The older I get, the more I actually find myself playing older and older video games. And I just wish that there was a simple way to preserve history, art as I would like to call it, for the end of time, okay? You know, as people get older, I'll tell you right now, I'm probably still going to be playing OG Final Fantasy VII on the original PlayStation 1. I'm probably still going to be rocking Chrono Trigger, and I'm probably still going to be playing the PS2 versions of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. It doesn't matter how many remakes the industry throws at you, with all of the content sometimes seemingly missing, things being removed, licensing not matching up. Original versions of games are important. And the fact that we're looking at one of the oldest sites in ROM preservation culture finally being hit all of a sudden is a pretty scary thing to see. Now, for those people who don't know, this is Vimm's Lair. Now, Vimm's Lair is a pretty popular website. It is, in fact, one of the oldest websites in terms of preserving video games and ROMs. In fact, it has been up there since 1997. Vimm's Lair is a website that's not just there preserving video games, but even video game manuals. Pretty much everything that you can imagine in video game history at least is attempted to be preserved, as you can expect in this entire area. So what they found out, actually, unfortunately, of June the 6th, is Vimm's Lair was asked to remove many games from the vault on behalf of Nintendo, SEGA, LEGO, and the ESA. While most of these games and the hardware to play them haven't been sold in decades, ultimately it's their prerogative, so these games are now gone for good. And this is where, again, I absolutely stress, these games aren't being sold anymore, officially, by anybody out there that is actually profiting. The original development teams, the original publisher. No, the only way these games are being sold, especially older games, is through the retro gaming market, which might as well be one of the most inflated fucking markets imaginable, and it's not something that I enjoy to see. You're not actually supporting gamers or gaming companies. You're just supporting somebody who's hoarding video games and selling them for exorbitant prices because they can due to these video games' rarity. It is imperative we have ROM sites that preserve games that aren't being sold so anybody from any walk of life can actually play these games. Before anybody gets into a topic of piracy, I want to shut that down right here. I do not support pirating video games, especially brand new games that are still actually being sold. If you want to play a Nintendo game like Paper Mario, for the 1,000-Year Door that just released on the Nintendo Switch, then you should buy it for the Switch. And if you want to back that up, then legally back it up and run it on all of your devices, whether it be the Switch or your PC with 60-frame patches all day. At least purchase the game. Now, again, where I really don't have any sympathy for these companies is if, for example, Nintendo is not selling a copy of, I don't know, one of their IPs or games in any capacity, then I think it's morally okay for you to download a ROM that they are not distributing just so you can play a piece of gaming history. Again, there is no harm to downloading a ROM that is not in actual financial circulation. So again, I just want to preface this by saying all of that, okay? I really want to just lay down the law when it comes to my specific position on ROMs and gaming preservation. A lot of people conflate preserving with piracy, and while piracy, yes, is bad, preservation is ultimately a net good. If you have video games and you can back them up legally to your system, it is always worth doing so. I have a whole plethora of Nintendo Switch games that I back up using a modified Switch so I can run them on my PC with higher frame rates and better resolutions. And that's just how I choose to play games. But I'm never going to get to a point where I'm not going to at least financially support the game developers that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into producing some of the best games in the industry. So again, looking into this, what games ended up actually getting removed, for instance, right? Well, there's an entire list of franchises that people tabulated. From Nintendo, they got rid of basically any Mario game, Zelda, Pokemon, and all the various different regions of those entire game franchises have been removed. So whether you get the Japanese versions, the American versions, the European versions, it's all fucking gone, okay? If you're in the SEGA Corporation, well, Sonic is basically removed, Yakuza is removed, Shin Megami Tensei and Persona have been removed, and the North American and European versions have been taken down, but for some reason the Japanese ones are still up. Now, this is an interesting situation. There are plenty of Sonic games, and I'm sure there are re-releases of the Sonic ROMs. Now, do they cover every single ROM out there? I doubt it. But again, some of these older versions of the games that are basically being removed, I don't see them actively selling them in the market anymore. So, for instance, this one game that's actually amazing, Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga, that's been taken down by SEGA Corporation. Now, can you buy this game in any capacity? No, it's a PlayStation 2 game that hasn't fucking been re-released in any capacity. It's a great game, and the only way to get it is if you actually try to go on eBay and purchase it, okay? If you wanted the official physical copy. So let me show you what the price looks like on eBay. So now you're telling me I gotta pay this fucking guy $106. Now granted, these are factory sealed, those are two new games. Let me just see the first one right here. I gotta pay $41, $57, the price of new games in some capacity just to play a used version, and a version from, again, somebody who is not the original retailer for the game, to buy this and play it on my home system. When in reality, if I'm not actually supporting the actual publisher or developer, how is this any different than downloading a ROM? You don't financially benefit anyone. See, it was easier to just download the ROM of this game and play it if you actually wanted to play it. But because of this hard-on and trying to remove gaming history with providing no actual alternative, this is a net negative for anybody who just wants to play these classic games. So a lot of these LEGO games have been taken down, and of course the Entertainment Software Association, the scum fucks that they are, took down the Assassin's Creed games, Battlefield, Ace Combat, Batman Arkham, BioShock, Borderlands, COD, Castlevania, Contra, Devil May Cry, Doom, Diablo. So some of these are recent looking games. You might be wondering, whoa, they're ROMs of these games? They would be Xbox 360 versions or PlayStation 3 versions that have been removed. Now granted, even in that case, some of those games are not in actual circulation, but there are PC versions of those games that probably exist that you can make a reasonable case for, hey, maybe you want to buy those games and buy them on PC where they're actually being sold by the publisher. But in cases like Grand Theft Auto, for instance, if we go back to Vimm's Lair, remember, Grand Theft Auto recently released the Definitive Edition, which has actually been one of the most controversial releases because music has been removed in some cases because of licensing issues, and obviously some would say that even the game doesn't exactly capture the magic that the original PS2 versions of GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas have kept. Now, I have my original PlayStation 2 discs out there, which contain the original soundtracks and the original look and feel of these games. Now, if I want to play something like Grand Theft Auto on the PlayStation 1, for some reason the ESA has taken that away. Where in the flying fuck is Rockstar, from my understanding, selling Grand Theft Auto? In fact, from my understanding, this used to be a free game they released on the Rockstar Games page years ago, over a decade ago. What about games like Grand Theft Auto 3 on the PlayStation 2? Well, for some reason, you can download one version of it, but again, if you wanted to download the American version, that's taken out by the ESA. So why they're picking certain regions over the other is also baffling. But again, this is an original version of the game that is untouched, in some would say a superior version to the Definitive Edition, slowly being lost to time. So in some ways, game publishers are redefining history. They're taking away original prints of these games and giving us butchered, fucked up versions, weird versions, okay, in order to play instead. Now, imagine if all of a sudden Silent Hill 2 was removed from this list. Silent Hill 2 is a game that has an upcoming remake, right? Well, if you don't want to play the remake, but you want to play the original version as it is right now, this is the only site, or one of the only few sites, where you can download a copy of Silent Hill 2. Now, Konami is not selling Silent Hill 2 for the PlayStation 2 anywhere, nor from my understanding are they selling the PC version of this game. So there really isn't any reason to jump on a hand grenade to prevent the distribution of a ROM if people are just playing classic video games that, again, aren't being sold. It would be different if these game companies had taken this stuff down, but provided cheap readily available alternative versions for you to download and play. Like, imagine if Nintendo provided the ability to download a library of their games through a Steam launcher for like a few bucks. I would say that that would be a fair compromise. Imagine if they provided the ability to play Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on PC through an official emulator app they released on Steam, or in general, and it would come with save states, rewinding features, actual quality of life upgrades. And if you could buy that for a couple bucks, $10 even, I think people would prefer to do that. Providing convenience is actually the answer to piracy, right? Piracy is not necessarily even like a money problem, as some would say. It is more a service problem. If you provide a proper service, people are very willing to pay for it. Now, some have speculated that a lot of this anger against Vimm's Lair has come from how popular emulation has kind of become on a lot of modern smartphone devices. Now, look, people on the world of Android have been emulating games for a long time, but ads like this that you have seen with, big publications talking about how recently Apple has allowed game emulators under their App Store has basically made sites like Vimm quite popular for people to download ROMs of Pokemon, Mario, and basically have them running on their iPhones within literal minutes, if not seconds, if you're actually fast enough. Now, I assume because of the popularity of this kind of stuff, it's probably raised the eyebrows, the eyeballs of Nintendo, and it made them look towards these sites and have issued actual blanket takedown requests. Now look, Nintendo, SEGA, the ESA, a lot of these organizations, they have the right to do this. It is well within their right. But what is legally okay sometimes isn't ethically okay. And that's kind of what I wanted to really just hammer down throughout talking about this video. Gaming history is under attack, and these companies like to attack history, but they don't like to provide any form of alternative to this. So yeah, it does leave people pissed off because yes, we want to play classic video games that we grew up with. And some of these games are timeless adventures. To lose them to time or not have them be re-released or updated, because really if these ROMs are being taken down and the companies behind these games are not actually maintaining their older library, then realistically it's all just a net negative to the core gamer, the people that ultimately these products are made for. And I'm sure there's a whole slew of developers that most likely agree with these shitty business decisions that, being against gamers. They don't want this to happen. Developers would probably be on our sides if it means that we get to experience the products they've made years ago. And look, if we can still financially support them, I think the companies need to find a way to make sure these games are preserved in a way where they can financially benefit and we can keep playing these older games. And look, if you wanted to get these games in any physical capacity, look, even games like Tomba 2, which is a game that I grew up with and a game that I enjoy and one that I would consider to be one of the best platformers on the PlayStation, is a game that if you were to buy it loose, meaning that the disc basically comes shipped to you as just the disc, is $71, okay? You want to buy it complete? $128. Want to buy it brand fucking new? $315. You want to get that shit graded? Bro, you better be willing to assist somebody in their money laundering scheme and buy it for $1,274.17 fucking cents. Okay? Now, is it worth spending that kind of money? Absolutely not. Because guess what? The company behind Tomba 2 doesn't even really exist anymore, okay? Whoopee Camp Games went out of business a long goddamn time ago. So why would you in any capacity give Jim Bob money for a cart or a disc? How is that any different than piracy? The actual developers are not financially benefiting. In this situation, how is it that you can take down ROMs of these old classic games and not provide any alternative to them? Even something like Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color. Konami is not selling this, okay? They don't even have it as part of the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection as of now. Maybe they might put it in later, but they're not even selling this original version of the game. How is this that I have to pay $105 loose when in reality, I'm just paying somebody for, purchasing an old physical version of the game that doesn't benefit Konami or anybody that developed it? Why is the ROM so annoying to get? Why is this being targeted when an alternative is never provided? Look, in a world where games come out and even fan games unfortunately get DMCA'd like the Metroid 2 remake, which you can understand if Nintendo's making their own product, it still sucks. But obviously in a world where games are so beloved that people make spin-off versions like Nightmare Kart, which used to be called Bloodborne Kart, but obviously the branding had to be changed so this could be distributed. are games that are designed by people that have fallen so much in love with certain franchises that they are producing content just to support and keep these things alive, even if it seems the game developers themselves or the publishers have long forgotten certain franchises and IPs. Look, there is a lot of gaming history and culture out there, and if you were to just, play entire franchises that have basically been left dormant to time for previous generations, you would have such a backlog that you probably may not be able to finish certain games and franchises in your natural lifespan. And that's just the amount of gaming culture that exists that is outside the scope of this gaming generation. And the fact that it might potentially be lost to time because companies keep going after sites, especially sites as beloved like Vimm's, that's just not good. That's just not a good situation to be in. And look, there's plenty of games that exist right now, like Metal Gear Solid 4, that, again, are being targeted, are being actually taken down. Because, again, Konami or any of these organizations don't want that stuff to be freely distributed. And I get that. But why is it that games like Metal Gear Solid 4, which haven't had a PC release, haven't had any updated port to the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5, why are companies targeting that when, again, emulators and ROM sites are preserving that game for people down the road? Imagine buying the Master Collection. You play Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, and now you want to finish this quadrilogy before you jump into Metal Gear Solid 5. Well, one game is entirely missing from the pool. And if it wasn't for RPCS 3 and the talented team behind that and the individuals that preserve the PlayStation 4 or 3 versions of those games, it might be lost to fucking time forever, okay? Because hardware ages, the discs end up aging and rotting out. But honestly, files that have been uploaded to cloud servers and torrents, they will remain till the end of time, long before you and I will cease to, or will exist. But yeah, this is just one of those things I wanted to talk about because, yeah, it does affect me. It does affect a lot of what I enjoy on the internet and gaming. And honestly, I hope, as pissed off as I am, I hope some of you guys can be pissed off and request better from some of these companies. That said, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it, I am out.